SVG roughs up Connor Zilisch to win the Chicago Xfinity race, plus Daniel Suarez says Trackhouse wasn't listening to him. Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope you had a great 4th of July, and we made it, y'all. It's the Chicago Street Week. It's finally here. 3rd annual, probably last annual time, and Shane Van Gisbergen is definitely upset. This is his home away from home. This is what got him into the NASCAR world, and once again, he takes the checkered flag. I'll talk all about his Xfinity win in Chicago today. Plus, Daniel Suarez speaks out to the media about his release from Trackhouse today. But if you're new here, of course, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Always talking NASCAR and racing here on Breaking Bob on a daily basis. But yes, it's Chicago time, and SVG once again takes the checkered flag. 2 out of the 3 in Xfinity series. Cole Custer won that original one. People forget that Cole Custer won that original Xfinity Chicago race, but SVG now back-to-back. Didn't have Kyle Larson on his heels. Only had Connor Zilisch this time. What a battle it was between the WeatherTech, Red Bull, Camaros, back and forth. And veteran prowess shows its head, I guess. It's Shane Van Gisbergen, the veteran, versus Connor Zilisch, the young phenom. It's been teased all week. This is really the first time they've raced truly up against each other. I know they did race a couple of times back last year in the Xfinity Series, but this is truly the first time they've gone head-to-head, it feels like. And with both drivers coming in as the outstanding favorites, they delivered, leading 38 out of the 50 laps combined between the two. SVG leading a majority of the first 2 stages, while Connor Zilisch leading late. It looked like we were going to have a battle where SVG was hunting down Zilisch. SVG got stuck in track position after a debris caution, put him back about 12th in the field, and Connor Zilisch holding down the lead there on the last stage. And he had fuel strategy where he was holding off SVG while having to save fuel, and still was doing it to the Kiwi. But then a caution came out with 4 or 5 to go. It set up a 2-lap restart where SVG got on the inside of Zilisch and just forced him a little bit to the outside. Zilisch tagged the wall there, didn't really give him any room. SVG did. It was racing for the win there. It was definitely not the cleanest move, but when you're racing for the win, all's fair in love and war. And you could tell Connor Zilisch was frustrated at the end of the race in his post-race interview, but very mature, handled it classy, saying, it's what do you want me to do? We're racing for the win there. I got to put myself in a better position. And I do agree with that. You could look at it in Christ-spilled milk and say, well, their teammates racing there, but SVG is not racing for points. He's out there to race for wins, and this is a track that he's obviously so good at. He was hunting down Zilisch, especially on the back part of the track. It seems like in the S's, SVG is just dominant. We'll talk about his Cup Series poll tomorrow in a second, but the way he was able to hunt down the competition today, it's fascinating to watch him at the street course just cook these drivers, it feels like. Absolutely just work and run them down. And for Connor Zilisch, really in the same atmosphere. Rare to see that, but Connor Zilisch is on the same level of SVG, but we weren't able to see them really race together because SVG, like I said, got caught in about 12th there on that final run there and was able to finally get to Connor Zilisch's bumper on the restart it was itself. But SVG had the track position early while Connor Zilisch hit the wall in practice after being fastest. We never got to see him out in front until late. So the laps we did get to see them together, it was that half turn in the restart where SVG pushed him wide. So I wish we would have gotten to see them closer together for longer in this race. And the time we did get to see them together, SVG was throwing the elbows out at Connor Zilisch on that turn. And Zilisch said, now I know moving forward, I know what to expect. And it's part of the learning curve for young Connor Zilisch. Racing guys like SVG, this is the deep end. You're racing against the sharks in the water where there's only racing for trophies like SVG. Like I said, this man's going to do anything it takes to win this race. And he's not the dirtiest driver, but when it's, last 2 laps and they're neck and neck going to that final turn, SVG's not going to cut you any slack. Connor Zilisch found out today. But let me know your thoughts down below about SVG versus Connor Zilisch in that battle toward the end. What'd you think about SVG's move there and the racing themselves? Did you want more? Did you think that the way Connor Zilisch worked his way through the field was just fascinating to watch like I did? I was watching his onboard cam on the CW app on one TV while I had the broadcast on the other, because when he started at the very back of the field, I was very interested to see how he would adapt as a young driver in this field for the first time. But he ended up handling it with flying colors outside of one time where I think he forced a driver into the wall and Dale Jr. said, hey, did you push somebody to the wall? Because it might have been the guy at our pit box next to us. I don't need him coming up and fighting us. So former crew chief Dale Jr. with a little sarcasm on the radio there telling Connor Zilisch, hey, manage your stuff. You've got a long race to get up there. And he did, but still got put into the wall at the end by the Kiwi veteran. The usual speed you expect from RCR on their technical lines with Big Machine, as you had Austin Hill 4th, Nick Sanchez 5th, Jesse Love 6th, just didn't have the speed to match Connor Zilisch and Shane Van Gisbergen. But one driver we thought that you potentially could see today was the driver that finished in 3rd today, Sheldon Creed. Now, he didn't get 2nd. I think it's his 14th second place finish he has in his career. 3rd place, but still on the podium there for Sheldon Creed, and was leading laps today. We thought this might have been the day for young Sheldon Creed to finally get that elusive win he's been seeking in the Xfinity Series. Once again, not today, but really encouraging from the Haas factory team. We saw Sam Mayer finish 8th as well. Really good speed in practice and qualifying there. Just, again, not the speed that they can compete with Zilisch and Van Gisbergen. And even you had Sammy Smith in the 7th place today. Junior Motorsports and RCR, it seems like the two teams that really, really bring speed when it comes to road courses. But one guy I got to give a shout out to, Austin Green, 9th place. It seems like anytime he's in an Xfinity ride, he had a top 10 in Mexico as well. Get him into a competitive car because he's going to get you results, it feels like. Austin Green, another result. It's not even a shock to me at this point. It's expected because he's really, really good on these road courses, no matter what the equipment he's in, it feels like. And also Brennan Poole, a 10th place finish for Alpha Prime. Once again, Brennan Poole, just the last few years, just really seems like he's honing in his racecraft ability in the Xfinity Series and on a road course. Not what he's maybe necessarily marketed as, but a top 10 for Brennan Poole and Alpha Prime. Huge for them. Meanwhile, tough days for Taylor Gray and Ryan Seeger on the cut line coming into today. Just not what they needed. Taylor Gray, it seemed like anything that could go wrong would for him starting in practice. And a race that I thought he would have a top 5, top 10 car after Mexico, where he was right on the heels of Daniel Suarez at the end. Unfortunately, not to be for the 54 team today. But overall, love the Xfinity race today. I thought it was going to be a little more chaotic, especially for what we saw in practice between the Cup Series and Xfinity with a lot of incidents. But no, the drivers kept it pretty reined in for the most part, even with those the late restart with 2 to go. It might as well have been an overtime restart with 2 laps to go, but relatively fairly unscathed for the most part. Not as many hurt feelings as I thought we might get coming out of the Xfinity race. All things considered, we had Connor Zilisch versus SVG with potentially the biggest bad blood of them all coming out of Chicago. And that being said, there's no bad blood there, but you could still see Connor Zilisch definitely frustrated after the race. But yeah, it just goes to show SVG on these street courses just so good. No matter if it's the Xfinity car, Cup Series car, he goes from one to the other today, and he's a quarter of a second faster in Xfinity, over a 10th faster in Cup. The way he laid down that pole lap, and then Chase Briscoe comes out and lays a really good lap to take pole away, and then SVG comes out and puts 3 or 4 tenths faster than Chase Briscoe. Just completely showing the field, I've got another gear in me. And again, I mentioned a second ago where it's the backstretch of this course, the S's. His street course prowess from his supercars experience really shows his advantage, it feels like, on the competition. SVG is just able to work the S's really well there. And of course, his clutch shifting there. It's been talked about how he uses the third pedal. It seems like it's a real advantage on a street course like Chicago today. But also want to commend Connor Zilisch for going head-to-head with SVG. It really shows the 18-year-old's ability, the racecraft, and the future he has in NASCAR. And he's probably going to be teammates with him next year in that 99 for Trackhouse, as Daniel Suarez, of course, was announced this last week that he will be parting ways after the 2025. As, of course, it's always been talked about. There's 4 drivers. Zane Smith was the victim of the musical chairs last year. This year it'll be Daniel Suarez getting out of the 99, as it sounds like Connor Zilisch will be taking over. And when you look at today's race with SVG and Connor Zilisch, that's what Trackhouse needs. They need an identity. They need branding. And you have the WeatherTech and Red Bull duel going, and you have 2 guys, one a veteran, one of the best open wheel or street racers in the world, not open wheel, but the way he races these street courses is incredible to watch. And then Connor Zilisch's ability and ceiling potential, it's hard to argue that they're not making the right choice, even if Daniel Suarez is a fan favorite, very popular with sponsors, multi-time winner in the Cup Series as well. And today he was talking to the media. Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports asked him why he wasn't as fast as his teammate Ross Chastain, and also why it didn't work out. And Daniel gave a very honest answer.
Since my new crew chief came to Trackhouse, he told me a lot of things that he didn't think they were right within the organization, and a lot of things that needed to be changed. And I've been being very vocal with the team. Hey, we need to adjust this, we need to adjust that. I'm not the only one seeing it. There is more people seeing it. And I know a lot of things happen. Everything happens so slow, and And I don't think that's the only reason. I think there is more things, but I just think that lately there has been things that have made me feel that I'm not as important. And I believe that we can run good. In Pocono, we were the fastest car in qualifying, the fastest car in the race in Trackhouse. But we're extremely inconsistent. Like if today we unload in practice and we are top five, I won't be surprised. But if we're 25th, I wouldn't be surprised either. Like we're extremely inconsistent, and that's something that we have to work on. And I feel like there is a good amount of people that they feel like there is still things to work on as an organization. And I just feel like my voice wasn't really heard anymore. And when that happens, in my opinion, that could be the beginning of the end.
It's really interesting how Suarez says he wasn't being listened to at Trackhouse, and everyone's going to harp on it and say, oh, well, Daniel Suarez is just sour because he's gotten fired from his ride. But he really does make a good point, especially when he talks about the inconsistencies at Trackhouse. And this is the same comments that Ross Chastain had just weeks before he won his race a couple of weeks ago to lock himself into the playoffs. And Chastain was saying how they didn't have the speed consistency week to week. Suarez is right. And whether that's because of the driver, whether it's because of the car, it's not because he's getting fired. He's talking the quiet part out loud. And Ross Chastain said something very similar. Those inconsistencies are very, very real. You don't know when Trackhouse is going to be fast. You don't know when they're going to show up 20th in qualifying or when they're going to show up top 5. It's really hard to gauge that. And as drivers, that's got to be so frustrating each week, not knowing what you're going to battle with as far as equipment-wise. And one thing I want to talk about is you really look at the inconsistencies when that started. You look at Trackhouse, how each season since the next-gen car started, seems like they've slowly just taken a little bit further of a step, maybe not down, but their competition, the competition they're supposedly competing against, the Joe Gibbs Racings, the Penske's, the Hendricks. In theory, that's what they're going against. That first year, they got Ross Chastain in a playoff spot that set the standard for them. But I think they got that success a little too early. They really need to compare themselves to the RFKs, the 2311s, that 1B on the OEM tier, where you're not the main focus of the manufacturer, but you're definitely getting tier 1 support. That's really what I think Trackhouse needs to be focusing on. And with that, they've had some turnover in the last couple months. Of course, everyone wants to talk about Pitbull departing, and that's the reason Daniel Suarez is going, but Pitbull got bought out. Pitbull was just a financial face of the team there when it first started. No, that's not what part of it is. I think what really part of this was Ty Norris departing the company last fall. And yes, he's now at Kaulig Racing. You see Kaulig Racing is taking a surge a little bit this year in the Cup Series side. Everyone's looking at AJ Allmendinger, of course, being back full-time in the Cup Series, but Ty Dillon in that 10 car as well has done well. And Ty Norris, anywhere he goes, whether it's to a new team or a team that just needs some new life into it, it seems like he gives them a jump start, and it's gone back from his days at DEI, Michael Waltrip Racing, Trackhouse, now Kaulig. It seems like everywhere he goes, he gives them a boost. And it seems like Trackhouse might be missing some of that organizational direction when they're expanding at such a high rate, with MotoGP now and this third car. They don't talk about Project 91 anymore because that turned into SVG's car. And I get it, but sometimes you have to hone in on what you're good at first before you expand and try and eat too much of the pie. And I'm not saying Trackhouse is doing that by any means, but you can look at the inconsistencies that Daniel Suarez is talking about, and he does make a great point. So let me know your thoughts down below about Daniel Suarez's comments, the inconsistencies, why he thinks that it didn't work out at Trackhouse, and of course, today's Xfinity Chicago race. Of course, subscribe to Breaking Bob. Like this video if you like what you saw. It helps me out a ton. And I'll be here to talk about the Cup Series race tomorrow with SVG on the pole. He's probably going to win, but it'd be interesting to see. Maybe not. I wouldn't be shocked. And you never know with the NASCAR Cup Series field. They're pretty good on this in this track, it seems like, now with all the sim time. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. Stay tuned. I'll see you next time.